the ACC will add Stanford, Cal, and SMU. Now, my question for you is, how does this change things for the SEC? Do you start being a little bit different in your philosophy of what was the term that Greg Sankey used a couple of years ago? Contiguous states? Is that
Congruency.
Congruency. So do you start to get away from that? There's still a Washington hanging out there. Notre Dame,
Washington
I guess.
State.
There's a Washington. I don't know. I mean, but what does that do?
Yeah, it's Washington State and Oregon State. Washington and Oregon are already in the Big Ten. Are going to the Big Ten.
Oh, so you can't even. Oh, you can't even get. So you can't go get what? I mean, I don't know that anybody's out there other than the ACC teams in Notre Dame. I mean, then they would all be congruent.
Yeah, I don't think I think the SEC should stick with congruency.
Well, they don't really have a choice.
But I don't think they need to either. The one thing I'll give
UMass?
The one thing I'll give Greg Sankey is I'll knock him for not getting better TV deals, but the advantage the SEC has, or the South footprint, your footprint is in areas where you can get a lot of great revenue producing colleges. So, I mean,
and you can get a lot of stat producing 330-pound dudes that can move. That's what makes the SEC inherently different than every other place in the country. They're, 70, 80% of the guys. If you want to look at the defensive tackle list of 4- and 5-star guys, I bet 70% are from the South each and every year.
Yes, because I've thought about this because Iowa and Wisconsin is like a pipeline for elite offensive linemen. But Dave, you know this. You can coach up somebody to be an offensive lineman. You can't really coach somebody to do what they need to do as a defensive lineman. They just got to have the raw physical ability, don't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, you just gotta have. It's rare to be 300 pounds and have fast twitch muscles. I mean, you don't see those guys bounce around a lot. You see somebody that's 300 pounds out in daily life. He's usually not springing from spot to spot in his particular chosen job. So now, when I look at let's look at the player rankings real quick. So let's pull that up, and let's go ahead and think of this as the section of the program where we say why the SEC shouldn't really be affected by this latest move. Maybe that's the direction we're going here. So if I look at defensive linemen, the top-rated dudes, so I'm going defensive linemen. They don't bring them up. They don't seem to break them up by defensive tackles. What am I missing here? Okay, so just defensive linemen. So I'm going to pick the 300-pound dudes. Okay, 300-pound dude, Illinois. So far I'm an idiot. Man, a lot of these guys aren't 300 pounds anymore. Football's gotten so light again. But let's just take the top 10, for instance. Defensive linemen. Now, some of these are borderline guys that could end up being edge rushers, or they could be defensive tackles. One, Williams Winery. He's from Missouri. Technically, that's the South, I guess. And then a kid, Breland out of California. You have David Stone, Bradenton Academy. That is in the South. Justin Scott in Chicago. Edric Houston, Buford, Georgia. Camarion Franklin, we know him. Mississippi. Dominique McKinley, Louisiana. L.J. McCray, Florida. Dylan Evans, Texas. Technically the South, if you want to count that as the Southeast now, and Jeffrey Rush out of Mississippi. So out of those top 10, now that's just a quick look at it, all but 2 of the top 10 highest rated defensive linemen. So you can break them apart according to 247 by edge rushers, but you can't break them up by defensive tackles. But out of the top 10 defensive linemen, 8 are from the South.
8 are from the South. 8 are from states that the SEC is already in. And yeah, so, and I mean, not only that, let's just, going through it again, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida. 6 of the 10 are from the original SEC states, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, which have charter members of the SEC. So, I mean, you're right. And we know Mississippi produces, I talked about this yesterday, the most Mississippi probably has the most freakishly athletic people in the country. It's just not that populated of a state. If there was only one SEC school from Mississippi, if it was just Ole Miss from Mississippi State, that would be a program on the level of Alabama.
Okay, so does this mean that Tennessee has to go get Florida State, Clemson, and USC like now?
You mean the SEC?
I'm sorry, the SEC.
I mean, I think they want to try, but I don't know if they can. Those were the only three schools who voted against the expansion. Getting SMU, Stanford, and Cal, Dave, they have three more schools to vote to keep the grant of rights agreement in place till 2036. So now FSU, Clemson, and UNC, to try to break that, they got to take that to court. And I'm not so sure the courts are going to side with them on that.
Well,
so they might be stuck in the ACC.
But we're all pretty sure the courts will move pretty slow on something like this, right? You might have one congressman like Tommy Tuberville or something get behind it because it gets him in front of a lot of televisions, but that doesn't mean the judicial system is going to move quickly to get an answer. I mean, this could be years, just like NIL, federal regulation. I mean, do we think that's even going to happen before, say, 2008? If I put the over under at 2008, you'll have federal.
You mean 2028? Because 2008 was
2028. 2028. You'll have federal regulation by 2028. Would you take the over or the under?
Oh, over meaning after 2028?
Yes.
Yeah, over. It's going to be after 2028.
That's insane.